The Ungame is a non-competitive style card game with one main objective: communication. Communication between strangers, acquaintances, friends, and family. It's not a traditional game. There are no winners or losers, no point system, or any specific goal to achieve other than one thing: to listen. In the late 1960s, Rhea Zakich had to do a lot of listening, as she was unfortunately diagnosed with the vocal cord condition and was put on strict vocal rest. For approximately 3 months, she had to continue her daily routine of being a wife, churchgoer, and mother in complete silence. Rhea has described how difficult it was to not be heard. She felt invisible. To try to communicate during her time of vocal rest, she began writing down what she needed and wanted to say. She still felt ignored, however, so she had an idea. She turned writing down questions into a game. Using question cards, Monopoly pieces, and a hand-drawn game board, she played a very early version of the Ungame with her family that she called Tell It Like It Is. This strategy worked better than she could have ever imagined. She soon learned more about her sons and husband in several minutes than she had in several years. As word got out, neighbors wanted to play it, then youth group leaders, teachers, and the greater community. Now there have been more than 5 million copies sold worldwide, translated into at least 14 different languages. The Ungame has come a long way from the homemade drawing board on the kitchen table of her California home. A visionary, a picture of resilience, one of my personal inspirations. Please welcome Rhea Zakich.
All right.
All right. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Okay.
Yes. So I was just wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about the classes that you're leading today.
Well, I have classes playing the Ungame. It's not really a class, but I live in a senior residence and always new people moving in. And every once a week we gather and hear each other's stories. And it makes such a difference when you get 200 people who are going to be living together and they didn't choose each other. It's very important that they find things in common and things to laugh about and maybe even things to cry about. So that's one of them.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. We have laughs. We have wonderful history stories about our lives.
That is great. Do you have any other projects you want to talk about, or is that all you've been up to lately?
Well, I collect articles for our monthly newspaper, but it's similar because I ask questions about people's lives and their backgrounds, and it's wonderful to hear stories. I think the thing about the Ungame that makes it different than just ordinary conversation over dinner is the rule that no one speaks unless it's their turn, which means when somebody answers a question, they don't have to defend it or explain it or listen to people counteract it or tell their stories. It's bigger and better. People really listen. We have a blind man who meets with the group once a week, and he takes a while to put his thoughts together, and everyone just sits in silence and waits. And he has said that in his ordinary life, people will all start talking while he's thinking of an answer to give. If they say, "How are you today?" While he's thinking, someone else starts talking about how they are or what they did. And so he ends up being silent most of the time. But in the Ungame, he has the respect of everyone as they wait their turn.
That's beautiful. Wow.
And children will answer questions differently if they know that their mother isn't going to say, "Well, you should have studied more," or I told you that if you didn't, or what you should have done was, they don't always want to hear those things at that time. They just want to tell you something. And so in the end game, people share things that they wouldn't ordinarily share because they know that people just hear it.
Yeah, speaking of which, I read on the back of the Ungame copy that I have that you came up with the Ungame during a really difficult time in your life where you couldn't speak.
Yes, my goodness. My sons were 9 and 10.
Oh.
And they were full of activity. And I constantly was nagging and telling them to, put their bike away and pick up their clothes and don't bounce the ball in the kitchen. A constant. And but prior to that, I had been working in a ghetto in Los Angeles after some riots back in 1965. That's a long time ago. And I had taken my sons with me during that time. But I was out in the streets talking to people, and I developed, I guess, nodes or polyps on my vocal cords, but the doctors didn't call them that back in that day. They said they were cancer-like growths. And they said I would need surgery. And I had to have 2 surgeries and be silent for 3 months without a word and without any warning. And once they did a surgery, they said, now if you talk or even cough or sneeze, you could start bleeding in your throat and you wouldn't know it. So that scared me into being obedient. So I had this months of not being able to talk to my kids or my husband or use the phone or carry on any conversations. And it made me a better listener. My goodness, people started sharing things with me that they had never shared with anyone. And I wondered, I had known them for years. Why are they coming to me now and telling me things? And I thought, oh my goodness, it's because they know I won't say anything. I won't challenge them and say, well, let me tell you what happened to me. I just would hear them. And when I wasn't using my brain to think of my responses to people, I actually heard at a different level. I could feel what they were feeling. And I paid more attention to their body language and their expressions. And sometimes all it took was a hug or a pat on the arm. And they would tell me later that they felt, they would thank me for something. And I would think, well, what did I do? I just sat there. But it taught me a whole lot. So I created a board game because ordinarily no one would have sat down with me. When people heard I was mute, they thought I didn't hear. So they would just wave to me. But by making it a board game and having my sons and husband sit down after dinner each night, move around this road of life on a game board and select question cards, I learned more about my husband than I'd learned in 10 years. And he said he learned more about the 3 of us, our 2 sons and me. He said he learned more in 20 minutes than he had in all the years we lived together.
Wow.
Because as maybe if you have children, so much of the dialogue is about rules and regulations and times and appointments and food and whatever. And this brought up subjects that we would normally talk about.
Yeah, wow. That is so cool. I don't have children yet, but I started playing the game with my grandparents, and I got to know more about them, just like you said, in 20 minutes than I had in years.
Isn't that amazing? But, when my sons were teenagers, we were still playing the game after dinner. every night. It was a way for us to reconnect at the end of a busy day. And I noticed that when we weren't playing the game, if they came home from high school and I'd say, "How was your day?" They would say, "Okay." And they'd go to their room and change clothes, go out and play ball or something. But when we had neighbors over, we played the game together. They might draw a card and said, "Talk about something interesting that happened today." And they would say, "The gym was on fire." And they would tell this whole story. And I noticed, I didn't say anything for a long time about it, but I noticed that when there was someone else playing the game with us, they would give so much more information than just a grunt when I would ask them. And so when they were 15 and 16, I said, "Okay, guys, why is this? When I ask you a question, you give me a one-word answer and walk away. When the game gives you a question, you elaborate." And they looked at me like, why would I be surprised about that? One of them said, "Mom, because when I play the game, I always shuffle that deck of cards. So I don't have to wonder, why is she asking me this?"
Oh, interesting.
So I found out that teenage boys figure that if their mother asks a question, there's some reason she's going for. And the other one, let's see, what did the other one say? Oh, he said the reason the other one said he talked so easily in the game was because of the rule that no one could say anything. And he didn't have to worry about me telling him what he should have done or asking him why he didn't do such and such. And I would just say, I just nod my head, and they like that.
Wow. So that leads me to my next question. How did you come up with the questions on the cards?
They originally, my first desire was to get my family to sit down because, like I say, when I couldn't talk, I was just like a statue in the house. They walked past me, they didn't pay attention. And so making it into a game board I figured we played a lot of game board games, so that would get them to sit down with me and not be on the way out the door. But then I thought, okay, I'm going to write questions that I wished I could ask. You know, when you've got 2 kids, 9 and 10, and a husband, you want to know, how was their day? How did they do in the test? How did they tear their pants? What do you want to do for your birthday? You know, I had all kinds of questions I wanted to ask people, and I couldn't. So I wrote them on recipe cards. Just every question I wished I could ask. When I would see my friends at church, I wondered how their vacation was and what happened to their little boy that was hit by a car. But I couldn't ask them. And it didn't work for me to carry a pencil and paper, a tablet, because people didn't wait while I wrote a whole sentence. So that they'd walk away. They didn't know what to do while I was writing. So originally it was questions I wished I could ask and couldn't. And then I started adding questions that I wish people would ask me and not walk away. And of course, I could show the question card to everybody. Then I could write my answer on a paper, pass it around, and they didn't walk away because it was a game. And so I hadn't thought all this through, and then found out it worked. I was just desperately trying to connect with my family, and I would learn from it.
I had the pleasure of talking to Rhea for about 45 minutes, so I have to cut this video into 2 parts. The rest of our conversation is continued in part 2. Thank you for listening.